At this point, we're thinking in any other year, the first month of the season is in the rearview mirror. You're into May. If we were going to bring on the CEO of the Toronto Blue Jays at any other time, I would think we would ask Mark Shapiro about his prized pitching prospect. Mark, good afternoon. When is Nate Pearson going to be playing this season? Is it going to be? Are you going to be calling him up soon?
Oh, man, what I would give to be on the spot to answer that one, or to evasively say we wait till 40 games to evaluate. If only I could press the evasiveness on Nate Pearson and evaluating our season and what our midseason actions would be, guys. It would be so nice.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back to that point. Before we get going here and talking some baseball, because it's always fun to kind of provide the distraction, as we have with most people. First off, how are you? How's the family doing?
We're doing all right. I mean, I think, listen, I have self-centered moments where I feel sorry for myself that mostly just that I'm not watching baseball, man. Like, I was so excited. Arash knows, just being down there, like, I was so excited to watch these guys play, and for all of the fans across Canada and in Toronto to see what we were seeing, their belief in each other, their belief in themselves, which is supreme, and just the talent, the depth of talent. So, but overall, I feel incredibly fortunate. It doesn't take long to open up a website, to look at the news, to recognize what's going on in our broader community, and to feel incredibly fortunate and grateful to not really have real perplexing problems. And my kids, who are two teenagers, have been far more accepting than I would have ever thought. And the silver lining is, I've got teens who I would see passing in the night, and I'm actually getting a lot of time with them. Friday night, my daughter gave me a haircut. We cooked dinner together and then watched a movie together. I got a feeling on a normal Friday night, I would have seen my 15-year-old daughter for a quick passing, hello, and that would have been it. So there is a silver lining.
All right, Princeton guy. I got 9 and 7 at home, and my homeschooling has been atrocious. Are they old enough that you don't have to homeschool, or have you been putting that Princeton degree to
there's
use?
A statute of limitations on the real material value of the Princeton degree at this point. That is just a piece of paper and a frame and has no real value in my intellectual capabilities. So I have no ability. Every now and then I can proofread one of my son's history papers. I'm still capable of doing that. But I would say at this point, that is the only value I offer.
Mark, since we're talking family and haven't had a chance to see you, I have to ask you about the most pressing matter in the Shapiro family tree. Timmy, it was like 4 or 5 years ago, Super Bowl. We're in the Bay Area. And the day before Carolina, Denver, Peyton Manning, Cam Newton, I get a call. They say, you got to go to Shapiro's sister's place, and you got to do a sit-down interview there. So we show up, and Mark's like 10-year-old, 9-year-old at the time maybe, nephew, Jake, shows up, and he looks at me and says, who the hell are you? And I explained what we were doing. And he said, I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. Can you explain to me why my guys hired Dirk Cutter as head coach? He's like, Dirk Cutter of all people as a 9-year-old.
Nice. So Mark, mind, yeah.
Mark, have you reached out to now not so young Jake to ask him what he thinks of Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski being in Tampa Bay right now?
Yeah, I don't have to reach out to Jake. He's very open with his opinions and widely out there for anybody to hear. He could be following you guys down that road, I think. So yeah, I know my brother-in-law Eric Mangini still holds Tom Brady in high regards. I think they spent quite a bit of time together, as does my friend Scott Pioli. And so it's going to be interesting. It is one of the hardest things in sports to navigate through the backside of a career, particularly for elite players. Really, really challenging for people that are in careers like mine. But it should be fun. If nothing, it will be fun because Gronk, man, he is awesome. He is so fun to watch.
Our NFL insider, Mark Shapiro, joining us here on Tim and Sid featuring Arash Madani. If we talk baseball, or at least in the framework of baseball, I know there's a ton on your plate right now, but what's been among the bigger concerns for you in the last 7 weeks since we hit pause?
Well, I'd say that, listen, in all candor, the biggest concerns with me is just figuring out how to lead in this environment, because every day brings a new scenario, a new set of challenges. I think part of a job of a leader, and I think moments like this make you realize the potential impact and power of being a leader on an organization and the people and all the people that care about the Blue Jays. And, part of my job is to be, and it is genuine, optimistic and hopeful. So I do know we will play baseball again. I do know when that happens that baseball will play an important role in kind of lifting spirits and helping people feel really good about our path to return to normalcy. But I also know that going through what we're all going through right now is a disruption, is full of pain, anxiety, and fear in ways we've never dealt with in our lifetime. So, navigating that line, Tim, between transparency, which I'm a big believer in, and still being hopeful and optimistic. If you're just asking me what's been the biggest challenge for me, that has been my biggest challenge. And then adjusting to conducting my life in a 10-foot by 10-foot room and never leaving that is not exactly uplifting either.
Right.
Mark, is there any opportunity here? For instance, with the building closed right now and nobody really coming in and out, if you're given the green light on any kind of, say, construction or renovation project, can something be done, or even a bigger project start at Rogers Center now that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to in season, just because there'd be baseball and the public coming into the facility?
I've seen some of that. Some of that chatter on Twitter. I didn't realize that was your fake account, Arash.
Right.
I should have known. No, I mean the lead time and the planning that goes on to a project of any scale, along with the allocation of capital resources, which is a major issue for any company or organization right now, is really a challenge. So that's an impossibility. I think what is exciting to me, and I do tell whenever I get an update from Dunedin and what we're doing down there with the player development complex, we've continued to maintain almost 200 people on the job site down there, which they're socially distancing and they're practicing, I guess, as best as they possibly can, a safe work environment. And, they continue to move forward on the project down there. So certainly the highlight of my week is when I get and I just opened them up and went through them, the 50 or so update slides and talk to our staff down there that's overseeing that project. That's still a big capital project. I feel fortunate in a world where almost everybody's cutting all capital. I feel fortunate we're able to continue that. And I do think that when we resume in whatever form baseball takes, particularly at the player development and minor league level, spring training and player development complexes are going to be utilized more and differently than they ever have. So our timing on that probably couldn't have been better.
Mark Shapiro joining us here on Tim and Sid, featuring Arash Madani. We've heard a couple of different ideas on how baseball will come back, but how do you prepare for the unknown, which is kind of the spot that we're in right now?
Yeah, it's not easy, and I would say that you're right. I mean, listen, we are scenario planning. There is I'm not being evasive, and there's no, the plan that, took on some steam this week was different than what I thought for sure we were in the direction we were heading last week. And I'm guessing that's going to happen 2 or 3 more times. So I think the most important thing we can do is to maintain contact, connectivity, and an individual approach with our players and ensure that we are there first and foremost to support them on their mental health and well-being. And then secondly, to talk to them about on a very individual level, because their resources vary dramatically. What can we do to maintain as best we can a level of preparedness and even in some ways, to think about how do we use the time to develop. Maybe it's more on the mental side of the game planning side, the strategic side, thinking about for Danny Jansen and Reese McGuire, the games they call. Maybe it's for pitchers, just reviewing attacking hitters and developing a game plan. But I think we can still do things, and we are on a very individual basis to still ensure we're doing the best we can to utilize this time.
I'm glad you brought that up because Sid and I talked to Marley Rivera last week, and she was talking about what the franchises and different franchises around Major League Baseball were doing and you brought it up about players with different resources, with different backgrounds, the Venezuelan players that were stranded in Florida, and she was very complimentary about what you guys were doing and understood. All of us have been around long enough that we know that sports is a business, but it's still comprised of humans. What made you guys take the tack that you have taken with the guys that are stranded in Florida right now?
Man, I can't imagine. My heart aches for those guys not being able to get home in a time like this and having to be stuck in a hotel and largely one room and not much around that hotel and the Clarion down there. So I think that's more a reflection of, what links Gil Kim, Joe Sclafani, Ross Atkins, to Charlie Montoyo, to every single person in the organization. And that's that when we joined together and, joined people that had already been here, like Joe Sheehan and Andrew Tinnish, the thought was, can we truly create an environment and an atmosphere that puts the player at the center of everything we're doing, and where the player feels just how much we support them, care about them, and want them to be as great as they can possibly be, both as people and as players. So that is at the core of every action. I feel that's not only an altruistic way to run an organization, I think it's a competitive advantage. I think we become a better place to play and to work. I think guys care more. Guys want to win more. They enjoy being there more. But moments like this, to think about, those kids, and they are kids, by the way, they're 17, 18 years old, to be alone in a hotel room so far away from their families with none of the things that lead to normalcy in their lives and maybe not completely understand why. We've just tried to, on a very, very daily basis, connect with them, guide them, talk with them, support them, provide them with some pieces of regular life if we can. But it's been a challenge for those guys.
Mark Shapiro joins us on Tim and Sid. Mark, you mentioned all the scenarios that have been floated, and I'm sure they've been going on for weeks. What's going to happen if? What could happen when? What could happen or could not happen? So far, which have made the most sense to you? Is there a scenario you've thought of or that you've heard that really makes the most sense of what 2020 could conceivably look like?
Not really, because the variables that guide where those scenarios go are putting public health first and foremost and then reacting to that. So the scenarios that make the most sense at any moment in time are the ones that fit within the constraints that we need to conform to in order to put the broader community first. I think more about, what should be our guiding influence within any of those scenarios, which is, to me, it's an incredible opportunity for the players, the owners, the league to get together to be completely collaborative in understanding the value of bringing our game back to our fans, to put the differences aside and just provide baseball in whatever compromise and whatever sacrifice individual stakeholders have to make, to put those things aside and bring the game back safely, first and foremost, but also as soon as we possibly can. And within that, I think we need to be open-minded. We need to be open-minded to whatever allows us to have that happen. And that's logistics. That could be location. That could be rules of the game, roster rules, any of those things. And I'm not going to get into the speculation on which one of those things is going to happen, because literally it does change very frequently.
Mark Shapiro joining us here on Tim and Sid featuring Arash Madani. Mark, it's difficult because you're in Canada and you're the only team in Canada, and right now we have closed borders. Have you had to contemplate the idea of baseball not being played in the Rogers Centre this year?
I mean, there have been dark moments when I've thought about that, not necessarily because of the border, more just because I think there's been moments when I've thought about baseball not being played, period, this year. Or if it was played, it would be maybe played late in the year in one location. But I will say this, and again, I tend to think it's really important and a lot can be solved by optimism. But I think a lot of that optimism is founded in the past 7 to 10 days, and I really feel much better that we have a better chance to play in our home markets. Maybe not all of them, but hopefully some of them or most of them. And I know we probably will not achieve what looks normal to us for maybe more than a season, but just to play and to be able to be on Sportsnet at night and, be able to have fans across the country connect to the Blue Jays. I think that's a great first step back, and hopefully we can do that before too long.
I got my credit / refund emailed from the Jays today for tickets that I purchased for the upcoming season, and I'm proud to say that the McAuliffe family had decided to turn some of that back over to the Jays Foundation and their initiative to help food banks with Home Plate to Your Plate, which benefits food banks coast to coast. And I know that was important to the franchise, that it was coast to coast. I know you've been a part of this. What has stuck out most to you about the initiative from the Jays Care Foundation?
Well, I think, in moments like this, listen, every moment you work in sport, you recognize the platform you have and the opportunity you have. And I think what I always tell young players is it's not just an opportunity, but it's more of a responsibility and an obligation to positively impact your community. That comes with, being so fortunate to be able to play the greatest game in the world for, your career, for your job. With that comes the responsibility to give back. Sometimes giving back is lifting spirits by winning games and winning championships. But in moments like this, I think it takes exceptional efforts. And all we did was build off the longstanding relationship that the Lady Jays have, that the wives have had with the food bank. Recognize that the need is beyond anything any of us could have contemplated right now. And maybe the coolest thing has been the number of players and coaches who have called us on their own, and staff in our front office who have called on their own and said, what can I do? How can I give back? So we just wanted to give back to a lot of our fans who are in need right now, and just make it a collaborative effort. A couple of our sponsors, Kraft Heinz, Labatt, TD, have joined us in a meaningful way. And it's just been a great opportunity to partner with players, with staff, with front office, and with our fans to help those of our fans that are most in need right now. And I think, listen, it's not just important, it's essential as being a professional sports franchise that we do that.
Mark Shapiro joining us on Tim and Sid. Mark, I remember last year at spring training, your son and Devon White getting into a spirited argument. Your son, Ohio proud, explaining to Devo why LeBron is the best basketball player of all time. Devo telling him, look, man, you have no clue what you're talking about. It was Michael Jordan. Have you watched The Last Dance?
He's watching it right now. I want to say on social media he swallowed on that one and said that he
has okay.
That opinion. Wow. Yeah, wow. So I think he's he'll get into spirited debates. Most of them are about baseball, which is so cool because the kid's an absolute baseball rat. He's being impacted as much as anyone because he's not able to play, which has been a part of a constant part of his 17 years of life. But no, I think he's on the MJ train now, so okay. I'm happy about that.
Wow. So if you could pick one baseball team from over the years that you would love to see that kind of behind the scenes on, I know you've experienced some and seen some of the up and downs. What team would you like? What's the baseball fan in Mark Shapiro? What team do you think you would love to get a backstage pass for?
Man, that's a great question, and I would probably have to say like one of Billy Martin's Yankee teams, just because the nature of the Bronx Zoo, like that, the nature of those teams, to have a first row seat to watching some of those antics. I like, listen, all the throwback games, I go between enjoying watching those and then making me bitter that I'm not watching us play right now. But one of the coolest ones for me to watch was the Pine Tar game, which I don't think I'd watched ever. And that was on the MLB network at some point, but partly because Buddy Black's probably my closest friend in the game. And he pitched for the Royals, which I didn't even know. But George Brett, that's the greatest snap of all time. And
Sure.
That was Billy Martin right at the center of that. So that was pretty cool to see.
Hey, listen, we know that time is tough right now, and you've always been very good with your time with us. So we appreciate you taking the time and doing this with us and speaking to the fans through this platform. Thank you for doing it.
No, I'm glad to be with you guys. I look a lot better on radio, so I'm happy to be with you today, and really just send out my thoughts to all the listeners across Canada that we as the Blue Jays are thinking about and pulling for everybody and want everybody to stay strong, stay healthy, and stay safe. And we are looking forward to bringing baseball back, to you when the time is right, and can't wait to be out there and performing for all of Canada.
Same goes to your family. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks so much.